Welcome everybody to episode 6 of Gringos Liberados. We are here with myself, Roodood, Trajan, Yeso, and RMC off the back of round 9 and 10, week 5 over and done with. We're heading into week 6 next weekend. But first of all, we're going to start off with our general thoughts, reactions, and overall sentiments about week number 5. I'll pass it over to Trajan first of all. You're on the top right hand side. You can get it. What are you thinking? Initial reactions. It was recording this on a Monday, so pretty fresh in our minds.
I got to be on both days. I was very lucky this week because honestly, this week might have been the best week that we've had so far in terms of on balance, in terms of source received out of the screen. Like there was just so much craziness. There were a couple of games. There were a couple of games that were just kind of as expected. But generally speaking, we had just high density of memes and clownery and CBLOL essence coming out.
So I was a big fan of this week.
So I was a big fan of this week, and
I'm just glad I got to be on.
I'm just glad I got to be on the desk for both days for sure.
Yeah, fully agree with you. I mean, all of us were actually on both days this weekend.
I'm not cool.
So, yeah, I agree. I think this was the most fun week. Last week was a bit slow. It felt a bit like CBLCK coming in. I was a little bit worried about how this week was going to go, especially with the mismatch on paper for some of the matchups. But my goodness, you can still hear my voice. It's still a little scratched up from like the chaos we had on multiple games on multiple days.
Yeah, I'm with both of you on that. Honestly, I would definitely second the most exciting, most entertaining week we've had so far. This split that Trajan pointed out, and the fact that even the games that didn't get crazy and were back and forth, it feels like everyone that wasn't that, we got to see just some really clean play from some teams that we were hoping to see that from. Right, it was largely in matchups where it's a top 4 or 5 team up against one of the teams with 2 wins or less, and coming into those you're going, okay, this is a matchup where you should win and you should do it in a convincing fashion. It felt like we got that, which is nice to see. So I loved what we saw this weekend.
So highlights for people that missed it, I guess, were that we had the Loud versus Pain gaming game on the last day of Sunday. So spoilers, if you've not watched that game yet, go back and watch it before you listen to this, because there are going to be heavy spoilers toward that game. Specifically, I imagine. We had also the Los Grandes Kaboom game, which I don't think was necessarily the most exciting, but was interesting to see 2 teams closer in the standings going head-to-head with one another, with Los coming out on top of that. Fluxu VKS, a game that stood out to me because they were 2 teams heading in an even scoreline as well, with Fluxu being your victors. All of those games actually on the Sunday, and then a host of Saturday games as well. I'll go to RMC first. If you had to pick one highlight from this weekend, I think I've got a good person here, because I know it can't be a highlight. The other one that other people are going to take is the Pain fan in the room. What was your highlight for the weekend?
Damn it, honestly, though, I think if we're talking like the most exciting game, it probably actually wasn't Loud versus Pain for me. It was actually Furia versus Red, where they went nuts that game. One auto from a carry could have ended that game in favor of Furia. That's how close that one got. So to me, Furia versus Red, I think, was the single craziest game we had on the weekend.
That's the second time as well. I will just say that Red have been in that position. Not as many weeks, but I think twice in the last 3 weeks they've been in a position where their Nexus has been less than 1,000 HP, which is lower than any Nexus should be feasibly getting for a team that's 8-1 at the minute.
And winning
2-0 in that scenario.
Exactly.
They're the kings of the Nexus defense somehow. They just keep getting away with it. And, eventually it's like, I think I asked this on the desk as well. Like, surely this has to be worrying. I'm not really sure why. I'm not worried about it, even though it keeps happening. Liberty and Furia and these teams on the bottom half of the table. It's just like, it's Red. They'll be fine. They're still the best, probably.
I'd say the majority of times it comes down to the fact that the rest, like, they're always there from one random flip in a late game of a game where they've always been winning before, right? Like, it's a situation where this would still be an upset win for the other team, even in the context of that game specifically.
I don't know about that. I thought Furia was actually was doing pretty well up to that point, and I actually was thinking Furia might be able to take it. And in the Liberty game too, Liberty actually had a massive lead. Too bad we don't have the gold graph, but that ended up swinging really heavily. So Liberty was really far ahead in that game. So I think it's more than just the fact that Red's so in control. There's just something magical about that team. We're just like, we can't imagine them losing in a lot of these scenarios.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So highlight for the weekend. What have you got?
I'll not go with. Well, okay. You know what?
You can go for it. There's only one other person.
I'm taking the easy answer because I'm one of the two guys, the other one right above me, who casted this game. Yeah, it was Loud Pain. I think we agreed on the desk, you, myself, and Trajan, that we felt like it was the most exciting game of the split. It was that kind of seesaw match going back and forth, and it was a match that we went into kind of having no idea which way it was going to go. If you look back at the first matchup of the season, if you take a lot of stock in that, you're probably going, yeah, Pain probably come out of this looking good. They were very dominant in that game, and they've looked really good as of late. They were kind of a little shaky in a couple of games early on in the season, but it feels like they've really settled in, and the entire lineup is kind of firing on all cylinders at this point. But Loud coming in with the 5-game win streak that they were on, looking as strong as they did, you were kind of like, okay, like, is it finally Loud's time? Are they finally going to show us like they're on path, on track to fight for another championship? And they showed that, and it was back and forth. It was incredibly compelling, and I think we all walked away going, give me 5 games of that.
I think it was the best.
I think it was the best.
Definitely.
Like, obviously,
Sure.
there was a lot of excitement in other games.
There was a lot of
like
excitement in other
the
games,
RC's
like the
base
RC's
defense is
call
great
for
as well,
the base
but it
defense is
felt
great
like
as
the
well. But
best
it
game,
felt like the best game, like the best League of
on
Legends
balance. For
on
such
balance,
a long game,
for such a long game,
Yes.
on average highest split, on average highest quality, like
with Robo aside,
with Robo aside, like in lane, right?
Robo
found it later on.
There
But
was
like,
just so much good
there was just so much good play, and
everyone
like
was clearly trying
everyone was clearly trying very hard. No one forgot to turn up that day.
I think that's
just what made it so good for me. It was like, these are the
we've
two
seen them in the finals so
we've seen them in the finals so often. And this is why, because they give us stuff like this, and that's why they clap everyone else, because they can pull out games like this, and only the other of these two teams can stop them when they're on that kind of form in a game.
So Trajan, your highlight for the weekend. Now that the easy one's been removed,
So
what are you thinking?
I'll kind of piggyback off it and take a very specific moment
which is
from
when
that,
at the
which
end
is
of the
when
game,
at the end of the game, when Tino stands up and he's like shushing, and then he has to go back to his keyboard to TP into the base to remember to win, and then he goes back to shushing, like he's TPing in. He's like, I've got like 5 seconds to channel here. I can get some more PM before the game ends. I can do it a little bit more. I love that, and that's just like, it's like optimal macro DMing from Tino. Seasoned CBLOL
knows how to get the most
amount of disrespect out while also high APMing his game finishing play, which I loved.
I feel like it's even more epic, the fact that Trajan picked that particular moment when House had a standout moment.
I know.
That says something.
I mean, that's how this weekend goes, right?
I'm trying to be more dimensional. You know, I can't become the full house that count.
I will show for you. I think honorable mentions. K-Stars versus Fluxu had some epic moments for House. I think Fluxu versus INTZ on Saturday was another coast-to-coast game where the two teams went like incredibly back and forth. That was pretty good. Furia versus Liberty, for I think being my most upset game of the week. I mean, Liberty still lost, but
that's the Liberty Classic.
It was such a great upset, but they still lost.
I don't know how they lost, but with what they did. But
they were doing so well until they weren't.
And then, I mean, Red and VKS was really entertaining too. That was a matchup we were certainly looking forward to going into Saturday. And VKS, as we said, right, they were winning until they weren't anymore, and then Red took over after 18 minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes in, decided, I want the Baron, and then went, okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds good.
That's fine. That's okay.
So that's like 6 out of 10 of the matches are all worth watching this week.
Honestly,
worth recommending.
For my highlight, this isn't necessarily a highlight, but this is more of I think for me, a shore-up of INTZ. The fact that they beat one of the teams that were around them in the standings, that being Fluxu. They ended the first round robin with losses to only the top 3 teams, so Pain Gaming, Loud, and Red Canids, and there are touted top 3 teams, even though there's a bit more to the standings at present, with Loud still actually joined for second. We have this expectation that they're probably going to filter out when they do play those top teams. I think that INTZ taking down Fluxu this weekend was a bit of a shore-up for myself, that there is now a top 4, even if 4 and 3 maybe separate themselves a little bit from one another. And I want to open up that discussion maybe before we go any further to see what people's general feelings of INTZ are as we, have ended round 10.
I'll go.
RMC's cooking. I want to let him go.
Okay.
No. I'm just enjoying, because I do think that's an interesting conversation about the top four.
Yeah.
Right now. I actually don't know if there's that big a gap between third and fourth, because with Loud beating Pain, that definitely puts Loud in top 2, right? Red are undisputed number 1, at least by the wins they've had. They're 9-1, only dropped a single game of Fluxu. So if those are your top 2, then Pain and INTZ become 3-4. And I'm going to be honest, I'm actually not sure the gap is that wide. I'm contractually obligated to say Pain third, but
That's true.
I'll justify it a little bit by saying that I think if we put these teams in the top 3 teams that I said, in a best of 5 situation, that they'd all take games off each other, and you could play that best of 5 also 5 times, and you'd also get a 3-2 in the level between them isn't that different. Mm-hmm. If you put INTZ versus that top 3 in a best of 5, I give it to the other team every time.
Yeah.
And that's my distinction between how highly I rate INTZ versus the other top 3. So that's where I'm at with power level, and I don't know if that makes it easier or harder to try and defend
the game
that
score
base.
wouldn't be 25-0, but
the match score would be 5-0.
The match score would be 5-0. I think it would.
INTZ, I don't know if maybe it's just inertia. INTZ though, like
I have that feeling.
What do you mean? Like, so I don't know. So I think that might give us a little bit of inertia there. And to speak to the Fluxu game, and I swear after this, so you are going to have to speak because I know you're good. But like,
we're all here to talk.
The thing about the Fluxu game is the only thing I want to touch on is that
INTZ basically won that game in 25 minutes,
and then we had 5 minutes of chaos, and then they won the game for real. And I think I put that more on Fluxu finding the red defeating source to fight the way out than actually INTZ being bumbling it super hard. Because I think that I was watching that game, and maybe it's just because I'm bad and simple-minded, but I was like, why are we not just 5-manning down mid and ending the game? Surely we're so strong, and our comp is so 100% a counter to everything that Fluxu have drafted that we can just run down 5-5 and then INTZ tried to do that and then almost lost the game on like a TP backdoor. And I was like, okay, sure, that's my bad. Maybe I was just too confident, and you didn't lose, but it came very dangerously close. So I think I'd give the struggle in that game more to Fluxu finding a bit of magic to keep it going than INTZ kind of dropping the ball super hard. And overall, in that lens, it was actually a really dominant win over Fluxu. And like, I think that speaks to the gap that Roodood alluded to between 4 and the rest, even if there is a gap up to 3 as well.
Yeah, to piggyback off of the point that you made, Roodood, talking about going into playoffs, going into a best of 5 situation, and talking about these 3 teams tied at second place in that kind of lens, I think it's very easy, and it also makes a lot of sense to give that edge to Loud and Pain, because we don't know what this INTZ team looks like in the context of a best of 5. It is a totally different beast from winning best of 1s, and that's why so often you'll see teams that tear up the regular season. I mean, you literally just have to look at Los Grandes or Fluxu from last split to have legitimate question marks about these teams going into best of 5s. And if you look at Loud and Pain, these are the 2 teams that were in back-to-back finals. Only 2 players have changed since before that first final, right? Root replacing Brunsey after split 2 of last year, and then Pro Delta coming in to replace Damage for Pain after the end of last split. So these are 2 rosters with a wealth of experience, and specifically in the playoffs, so it's very easy to give that edge, and I think it does make a lot of sense. Ultimately, where I stand on INTZ, and I feel like I was one of the people that was the highest on INTZ coming into this split. Now, granted, I thought they were going to be the 7th place gatekeeping team and beating the teams below them. So it's not like I was like, they're a playoff team, but I feel like now they have very clearly become, they've just shifted up a few places and will still play the same role. I think I can't imagine anybody below INTZ beating them throughout the rest of the split. I think it is a very easy path for them to get to 12-6 and possibly better if they can make some magic happen against those top 3 squads. And I can't wait to see what they do in playoffs. I don't know what's going to happen, but this team has me excited.
Okay, so question marks around INTZ's playoff potential, but general consensus is that fourth seems about right. I do want to add a little more context to the table before we move on. That Red Canids obviously dropped a game, but it wasn't to any of those teams that we've just listed. It was actually to Fluxo, who sit themselves now just one game above Furia and the Vivo Cade Stars, which feels correct. If you take a game off of one of the top 4 teams, feels appropriate that you get yourself a little bit of an advantage, and that's currently what Fluxo have with sole possession of 5th versus the 6th, 7th quote break off, where we've got Vivo Cade out of playoffs, Furia in, but that's based on nothing at the minute because we need to see them play each other in a second round robin.
Yeah.
Let's move it on though. We obviously, as I alluded to, had the end of a first round robin. We're going to play a little game, a little trivia, not trivia, some scorecarding. That's what I'm looking for here. We're going to give some rankings, some ratings to all of the teams of the first round robin and see how we think they performed in a multitude of different factors. So I'm going to open the floor to really whoever feels like they want to go for this one. We've got, I think, the Red Canids first, if I'm not mistaken, to have a look at. We've got drafting, laning, team fighting, macro, an overall bracket, and then an X factor, which is we've kind of said and defined as intangibles, things that you can't really see, or things that you can see but you can't quantify more than anything else.
Basically, if it doesn't fit in anything else, chuck it under X Factor.
Yeah, exactly. If it's not drafting, laning, team fighting, macro, it goes into X Factor.
Yeah.
So Red Canids are our first team. I'm going to open up the draw here and say that their drafting has been aggressively mid, honestly. Not necessarily, wow, another Red Canids draft where they've just canyoned everybody. The game plays itself. I'd say A-, a B at a push. Honestly, I'm not sold either way, but I want to hear everybody else's thoughts if there's anybody who's particularly swaying in a different direction.
I think most of CBLOL honestly has been quite average about their drafting. Like nobody's making it. Very few people are making egregious mistakes, and very few are making amazing.
Some people are.
We'll get to some people. Think about that a little bit, yeah. So yeah, I think Red are fine. I'd say they're like you said, Rude, kind of average, like B. Maybe won't say B plus because I do think they're playing well into their strengths in the draft. But other than that, yeah, I don't feel particularly strongly about Red's draft. It's more the other factors I think that are pushing them upwards.
Yeah, I don't think they're like drafting necessarily incorrectly at times. Like they kind of flubbed a couple of like instances in early game, like we saw Aegis with the Ivern, like 2v1ing mid and dying or something, right? Like it was just very, very messy, but that's not necessarily Ivern's fault, you know what I mean? So I think that their drafting has been fine. I don't feel like they're super hard countering or like exploiting anything particularly that no one else is. Like we're just like seeing Tino and Zari over and over again. They were one of the first to move to the Syndra, and they had that ASOL game, right? Was that was a Tino's game that just kind of happened?
Well, Tino's is on a different team.
Oh yeah, he is, of course.
Am I confused?
Sorry. Yes, not Tino's. I'm not
because that's my point for Loud.
I'm thinking of Envy Vex is actually a simple thing to plug in there, where they have stepped into like some other picks that they're not just going full meta all the time. They have pockets to use. So, jungle mostly, but Envy Vex as well.
Yeah, I'm actually now, we've said that, leaning a little more toward an A- or a B+, just because they've got Ivern in the jungle, they've got Vex in the mid lane.
Yeah.
They had they were one of the teams that are playing actual carry junglers for ages as well. That was a big point that we were hitting for the early weeks. So I'm more leaning toward them having something that's a little bit different that we've seen be successful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna post the A- and hope that nobody else particularly disagrees. Because I'm aware that we've got to do all of this for all of the teams, and we may need to zoom on through a little bit more. Now, laning? Question mark?
Quite good. Rather good, I think. Except bot lane. Bot lane's bad, but like the other two.
For context, they are the second worst team at media 15 in the league.
Oh, they actually.
Yes, they are.
Okay, maybe it's not good.
It's kind of tough because Red's laning is not bad. But the problem is we expected so much more from these names. Like when I look at this lineup, laning should be an S or A+, like flat out A+. Like there's no question they should be the strongest laning team. They are not. They are kind of just barely above average at laning right now.
Yeah.
That's not what's causing their goal deficit. To me, that's more macro and how they pull out the early game. But their laning has not really been impressing me. So I'm only willing to give them, say, a B, I think, for laning.
I would give it like a C, actually. In that
I would go
C in context, you know what I mean?
I'm probably C plus.
Yeah.
Okay, what is average? C plus?
So I would say
I think
like
a C.
Like I think average, because in theory, let's go have like an A to E scale. We'll not have so we'll have like 5 ranks here. And we don't have to. We can add like plus and minuses if we think there is like a little edge to add either way. But I think C is a pass, right? In most systems. Technically, in the UK, you can pass with a D, but that's because
I'm Asian. It A's a pass, a B's a whipping. So
yeah, it's so and with Red, with a team like this, you're not getting A's across the board. You're getting whipping, man. This is a super team, right? This is how we should be thinking of this. So I would give them like I guess from what you said, a C at best, because they should be so good, and I don't think we need to necessarily qualify it super hard yet, but I think C feels right because it should be better.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Because we also have team fighting next, and I think we can put away the whips real quick when we get to this point in the game.
Do you think team fighting is really good?
I think this plus the X Factor duo would go a bit too crazy.
Yeah.
And this is maybe just A plus. I don't think you can be 9-1 without having one of, if not the best team fighting squads in the league.
I'm willing to give like A plus for the X Factor, but their team fighting, I've actually been complaining that I don't think Red has been coming together that well. They have more recently in the last couple of weeks started coming together, but even then, half the time I don't feel like they're really popping off.
So this is like mechanical team fighting, right? That's what we're looking at here.
I think
that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Executing a 5v5 like at Baron, at Dragon, in like a base siege. You know, I think a lot of Red fights coast on massive individual outplay. Now, whether that counts as good team fighting, I'm not 100% sure. Because like Titan 3v5ing or like 1v9ing in the base defense, I wouldn't call that a team fight.
Yeah,
I'd call that Titan being Titan, right? So I think that I wouldn't give them A plus for this. I'd give them like I'd maybe be happy to give them an A, or like an A minus, because they are like all the mechanical skill does come together, and some of them are really good team fighting. I think FNB's team fighting has been exceptional, like all split long.
Is Olaf, man, fuck.
Yeah,
Frosty's been super cracked as well.
Sion,
quietly.
even at Casante's, right? When Casante was losing every game except the ones FNB played, like I think it was. I think team fighting is good, but I wouldn't A plus it. There's teams that I would A plus, but I don't think Red is quite.
So B then? B plus?
B plus A minus.
I would say A minus B plus is fine.
Let's be harsh. Let's be harsh to them here.
Okay. I think there's a team in my head that I have that is a definite A plus.
Yeah. I think I can guess who it is. We'll get to it, but like, yeah.
Okay. I'm down for this. Our UK brethren are channeling their inner Asian moms. So
I'm very curious if anybody is as down on their macro as I am.
I've been down on the macro the whole split.
I'm just like friends here, so.
Dude, I just can't believe how often this team will build leads. And it typically happens in the mid game. We know that their laning phase, at least, whether it's the actual laning play or the overall movements on the map and all that stuff, is not incredible. But they come to like 20 to 25 minutes a lot of time with at least a little bit of a lead, and they start to snowball. And then I'm just like, okay, why do you guys not know how to finish games so often?
Why is the game still going on?
Yes. It blows my mind, especially with the wealth of experience on this team. You have, I think, arguably the best jungler in the league. You know, you could certainly say that maybe having a rookie support hurts some of that macro play a little bit, but like, you should make up for it by committee with this roster. And I'm just like, why are you so lost sometimes after 25 minutes?
Yeah, I'd even argue pre-15. I don't think their macro is very clean. Like, I think Aegis ganked well. Yeah. He's got some objective control, but it feels like a lot of times they could secure both objectives simultaneously, and they don't. They just kind of handshake trade, and then like Aegis is ganking a lane, great. That person gets a hit. Aegis turns around, and next thing you know, that person's running it down. So it's like,
because Botlane's dead all the time. We can't get Dragon because Titan's dead. So shame. Let's go get Herald, guys.
Like Envy lost prio mid just as we wanted to take Herald. Okay, guys, we got to back off this one. It's kind of like, okay, so I'm not a fan of the macro.
Are we seeing here? Are we
being
quite
easily.
Honestly.
Yeah,
if we're saying E is the worst, I'm at a D.
Yeah, I'd say C at best.
C minus.
Because it definitely still feels like this team just like brute forces a lot of wins.
Yeah.
You know,
And they
we
do
talked
get
a lot
those
about
leads.
hands check. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're just able to
in
hands
some
check
way.
people. And this is why this team, like, I feel like they will finish first at the end of the split. I don't know how confident I am with this team going into playoffs, just because you can get away with this in best ones, you can't in best of fives.
Okay. Do we want to just put A+ in X Factor and move on?
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
whatever
go
the
ahead
highest
and put
rated
A+++ in this one.
Now Victorian for X Factor. They're here.
Yeah, like this is just the ultimate peak hands check, right? When they're doing
to give some context for why it is this good, it is just that individual outplays in team fights. 9 times out of 10, Titan is going to carry them a game when he has no purpose doing so. Same to be said for FNB. Honestly, if he's getting given these tools, he's been solid as well. I think we can all acknowledge that the individuality of these players gives them this rating, and they've done way too well. What are we thinking for an overall rating? So we've got quite the spread here, and they are our best team in the league. Yes, exactly.
For X Factor alone, like despite the fact that we've got 2 C's, a B+, and 2 A's, averaging them out should give us somewhere around a B. But the X Factor alone pulls them up to an A for me.
Maybe like
I would
A- to give fair.
I would say B+,
credence.
A-. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we think that we're going to give a team a better score than an A- for an overall ranking?
Yeah. Probably.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down for this. I've had a lot of criticisms of Red. I'm here for an A-, honestly. So
yeah, I love.
And I'm here for the Twitter flame as well.
So much criticism. It's always like we have so much criticism, but they are the best team. Like we have so much criticism, but they are gonna win. Like it doesn't. We're not questioning this.
You still look at that roster on paper and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I believe
we can fix this. We can fix this.
I can fix them.
Who is next? Who is next on our roster? Okay, so we're going top to bottom, it looks like, from the table.
Okay.
Loud, I want to go high on drafting. Just my initial thoughts. They like to give Tinones Syndra. Gets a thumbs up from Roodood.
Yeah.
I mean, the Swain as well for Tinones. The Cassiopeia. They know Tinones is like the end all be all in draft right now for against any team, because whatever you draft, Tinones has an answer to it. And so just because of that alone, Loud has looked like the best drafting team in CBLOL right now. So they get my A+.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean that Darius just chef's kiss, man. Just
he looks really good.
Yeah,
absolutely sensational.
The draft
in theory,
was fine. That was real
drafting Darius is really clever. No,
yeah,
stop playing Darius.
Yeah, in the same way,
totally different conversation.
I think it's Maestro from Furia, right? It's like you have to draft, for the players you have. Like I give them comfort for the first few weeks, and we all watched Robo's Poppy, and then we gave him Darius, and it looked like we'd all been burned. But then carried the game anyway. Well, carried mid game potentially. There's an argument for, but
he killed Weiser.
He did. God knows he did.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty smart.
Laning phase.
It's like 2 A's and an E, right? Like
across
yeah, kind of.
Averages out to a C+.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. I don't like we know Tinones is an ace. Tinones is an A mid laner. Think Seos Root or an A bot lane.
Yeah.
Robo's an E top lane.
Yeah, and then what about Croc struggling? Because besides the level 1 Poppy shenanigans, which was hilarious, like how do we feel about?
I thought that was actually really good too.
It is really clever.
But in the course of the round robin, I feel like we're only just getting back.
We've been a bit ropey, yeah.
But he has been cleaning up his act, and
he's gotten better.
A little bit of recency bias, so I think
let's not
probably right now with his current performance.
Sure.
So B-. I'll allow as high as B-, I think, on my side, because I don't think we can give anything higher than that when your top laner is just straight up sending.
Yeah.
Most
that definitely does hurt it significantly, as well as a handful of games of Seos, or not Seos,
I feel like you'd prefer.
I don't know. I'd give higher.
Oh no.
I prefer a B, honestly, for laning. Like I actually think Robo aside, they're good right now. Like when I think about it this way, which teams can beat them in laning right now?
ZZK.
No, like I mean, across the board as a 5, which teams can beat them for laning?
INTZ could. INTZ could.
INTZ.
I ironically kind of Fluxu as well. If Robo's bad enough that you can't do anything about that, I think House matches Tinones, and I think Bronze Jojo matches Fruit Sales. in laning.
Okay.
Not in like really anything else, but in laning for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like VKS could, but it feels very coin flippy.
Yeah.
INTZ for laning is a bold shout, and I quite like it actually. VKS, sorry. Yeah, that's a good shout for laning. Yeah.
VKS, I don't know if they'd win in laning. I think they just very, very differently. And then
I think neutralizing an A lane is a very good like metric to have. If you can neutralize an A lane, we're good. An A ranked lane.
Yeah.
That's a good metric for my eyes.
Yeah, I agree.
And
ZZK does also do a bit of explicit things up in top lane while.
Sure. Yeah, ZZK for sure is the beast right now, but
yeah.
So Loud, I'm happy with B-. I'm not going to push any higher, and I don't want to.
I would push for a B, but I'm being outvoted. So
no, I'm the host.
I would say I'm okay with a B. But...
Okay. I've been outvoted by Rude.
Yeah. Team fighting for Loud.
A+.
I mean,
A+.
I mean, they have Seos, so
it's very good. It's very, very good.
They are the team fighting team. And
it's just
that's coming from a Pain fan who's probably like the second best right now. But Loud definitively proved yesterday that they were the best.
RMC hoped to walk out of yesterday saying Pain's the best team fighting team, but and unfortunately he can't.
The team fights went like 5-4 in favor of Loud or something, so it's a Loud W.
Every time, man. Every time.
And won some of those team fights. They made some plays.
Exactly, right?
Some clutch dredge lines from the Nautilus, you know? Pro Delta. I think Pro Delta had a solid game yesterday. Not perfect.
How do we rate their macro? We'll all agree that they're just the best team fighting team. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Macro for Loud, I think for me, they've seemed good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've gone a lot better.
I think that we have to, if we're taking in or out recency bias, like since they've gone 7-0, they've just been the best team in maybe the league, ? But they did have those 3 games at the start of the split, which give us a bit of a weaker trajectory. So
yeah,
a lot of questions, I think.
I'm personally okay. The reason why I'm allowing recency bias my choices right now is because I do think the teams have changed markedly over the course of the first round robin. So I really do think the first couple of games don't matter quite as much, especially for teams like Los Grandes or Loud.
But this is a first round robin report card, RMC. We have to factor in the whole of the first round robin.
Like I would be.
It's not a where do we rank these teams going in.
Okay. I mean, I don't think their macro was abysmal in the beginning either. I do think a lot of that was micro issues. So I
genuinely think
early
was not macro decision. It was just
I think early on they were like C+, B-, and then now they're like at an A. So B+.
B+.
Yeah. That's right, Heaven.
Yeah.
B+, sorted.
And they have been so good as of late that it can outweigh to an extent some of those earlier foibles.
Yeah, they were kooky in the early stages.
This may be a bold take. I don't think Loud has much of an X factor because I think the rest of their card is so good and their fundamentals are so on point that I know what I'm getting with Loud. That I don't expect them to. I think their X factor comes from the top lane, and I don't think that's an X factor. I think that's just Robo when he actually plays the game is actually good at the game instead of doing what he's been doing this first round robin.
But is he playing it now, Roodood? Is the problem. If he's not, then he's an X factor.
Parts of the game he's doing it now, which is more than before. So we're like patching it in slowly with the jigsaw, putting it back together. But I kind of agree with that.
I would have the X factor at a C. Honestly,
have Loud been like fighting their way out of situations we don't think they could win, or been doing like unexpected things in games? Really, like.
They're so good that you can't see the X factor right now is the issue.
That's what I'm saying.
Because you can really see it with Red, right? Like you can see the X factor.
Yeah, because Rick is putting themselves in weird spots. But
they got marked down the corner.
We gave season the brain skills for that one. So
Oh man, this is I guess the way I looked at it as X factor is just what can they pull out. In this case, if you guys are saying that's
because we've given them the A+ for team fighting, right? I think and. That's like the other side of the coin.
There's still Robo. Like their laning goes up to an A+ if Robo comes online. So to me, that's like the X factor, right? So
probably.
Like I feel like X factor is pretty high because of Robo.
I give them like a.
I don't think it's pretty high. I think so. The way that
I need to have seen the X factor. It's
not even that. It's more so even. I mean that is true for first round robin. This is a report card. But it's more so when this team. has Robo inting top lane, they still win games.
Yes.
So the X Factor doesn't mean as much. Like, oh, if Robo has an X Factor game, the outcome doesn't change. When Titan 1v9s at his Nexus, the outcome of the game changes.
New history is written.
That's where
let's go with C plus.
Ooh, okay, yes, you're fine. Whatever.
It's definitely not negative. Like, they definitely don't. Like, Robo.
The X Factor is not bad.
Yeah, and like Robo has in this first round robin had a negative X Factor for me because he has been actively awful compared to what you know is supposed to be. But the rest of them have been really consistently good, so I don't want to give them more. I give them like a C plus or something. So it's above. It's like average, slightly above average. But yeah, they don't change the course of history in the same way the other teams do, and they have had a negative influence on their X Factor in the first round robin. Maybe we could say.
Overall, it's like just A plus though. RMC, you've lost this battle again, my friend. I'm afraid.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think like we have a different way of grading systems in the.
I can't.
I'm consistently clocking it higher right now. So
I can't A plus them for this until
I would say
it's still not like they still went that distance with Pain, and had to like Robo still went 0-3 in lane, right? And like they still had. I don't think I would rate them as like A plus.
A minus?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Are we thinking a minus goes in there?
Just because there are still significant places where they can improve.
Yeah.
They can be cleaner.
If we put them A minus, is any team going to be A?
I don't think I would rate any team higher than Loud right now.
Yeah, that's why, like, to me, they are the A plus or A.
What did we give Red? I already forgot.
Okay, but are we grading this on a curve, or are we
Yeah.
grading this based on the team?
Either way, I think that Loud have passed the test.
It's like, because like I would say I'm grading this in so much as like I feel like an A plus overall team is like peaking.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm giving Loud an A minus because I'm like, this team can be better. There are things that they can fix, things that they can work on. We haven't seen the best Loud yet, and that's why I wouldn't give them an A plus.
Okay, so then I guess that's where I'm having a problem with the rating system, because if we are rating them based on what they are potentially capable of, right? Then like that changes.
I think that's a dangerous game. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think we should just rate them based on like how they
what we've seen. Literally what we've seen.
Okay, but what Loud you've seen is an A plus?
Definitely.
It's A. I said A. A plus.
Okay.
A minus is doing that.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Like I think A minus. Okay, I understand that the first 3 weeks were kind of rough, or the first couple of games were really rough in them. But
that's a third of the first round robin, though. You know.
It is, but
their first win, they looked like shit. Like their win against Liberty was atrocious.
It was what they needed.
Like it was probably enough. I think their game against Liberty might be the worst game they've played this split.
But they won. And you know what? I'm hard pushing for an A for Loud right now, just because I don't think we're going to give another team a higher rating than Loud.
I don't think we need to.
Yeah, I think we actually just rate everyone lower than that.
Yeah,
sure. Even
everyone may well be lower than Loud, but saying Louder an A minus team still says they're the best team in the league if everybody else gets Bs, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think this becomes an interesting conversation when we get around to Pain, because they're the only other real team, one of the only two teams I think that enters this conversation, and then obviously will Pain, just in the way they play, I think it's hard to poke holes in it in many ways, right? So I think they end up being like will look like quite a highly rated team. Even though like they lost to Loud, it was super close, and they're still like joint second, you know. So
yeah,
I guess that's
okay. We'll see what we come to when we get to Pain.
Are we getting to Loud?
Interesting one.
eight more teams to go.
Yeah, let's.
This will get easier as we get through teams because the decisions will be worse.
There's definitely a few teams that are not
I have
going to take
control
long.
of the sheet just to pull back the curtain. I'm gonna take us to the bottom of the table for a bit, and we'll come back to the top, so we don't just go down and just like end up in the bin of like this is just
okay.
Let's go to the bin now.
So let's go to the bin and find Kaboom.
Oh man.
Okay, now drafting is already an interesting question for Kaboom, right? Like, what are we doing?
Do they have 3 Ezreal mid games?
Can we stop picking Ezreal mid, please?
I think it's 2 Ezreal mid, 2 Ezreal bot.
Can we stop
so far?
Ezreal at all?
Maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
Just anywhere?
Okay, so Dia funnily enough tweeted asking why they keep picking Ezreal as well, which is a valid question in the current meta. That said, I actually think Kaboom, specifically their coach, who is who's coach again? It's I don't remember who their coach is, but whoever Kaboom's coach is, I think is trying to do their best with the cards they've been dealt. And that's why
somebody has to.
Yeah. So the draft is not good objectively speaking, but I think given what they're having to deal with, the drafting is good with the circumstances they have.
I think they're.
What grade would you be happy giving this team RMC? You sound like you're selling the most copium.
Sure.
And
I want to give them at least a C.
Really?
Yeah.
I see a Zac and 2 Ezreals in your champions played for the first round robin. I'm leaning more towards where do we go on the scale, you know?
But
Kai'Sa mid as well. That was good into LeBlanc. I'll allow that.
Thickness, by the way, is the coach.
Was the Zac bad though in that draft? I thought the Zac was good, and I thought that was one of Flawless's better performances that split. So obviously, I think that pick did it shot. Maybe it's a bit of a comfort for Flawless because he performed better that game.
Okay.
They play like a Jarvan.
I just want them to give their best
game.
player actual playmaking potential and put them on a mid laner that can actually affect the game.
So
Ezreal is not that. Please, God, stop.
He's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 unique champions. The only champion he's played more than once was Ezreal.
Has he played Annie once?
That's 2 more games than he should have played.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
So can we just put C- and we move? C- is giving RMC his C grade, and then it's giving me the relief of not allowing Ezreal mid to be vindicated.
Yeah,
right.
It's just
it's not the problem though for their comp.
Yeah.
What do we want to give to the worst laning team?
Oh jeez.
In CBLOL.
I actually don't think they're the worst laning team like on average. I think specific lanes are the worst, but I think Lonely and Crossdale have been laning pretty well.
Yeah.
So bot lane is like hard.
But what does pretty well mean? Does pretty well mean that they're
Lonely's winning lanes more often than not.
Yeah,
and Crossdale
fine.
Crossdale's complicated because the poor guy isn't being left alone. He has to rotate out half the time to back up Flawless or help out bot lane. So it's hard to talk about his exact laning. So I don't think they're the worst laning team in the league, but it's hard to
curious who you would pick as the worst laning team in the league.
Yeah.
Because even our other bad teams, I think, are better at laning individually.
Yeah.
I have Liberty lower actually in straight
laning.
Really?
Liberty, the second best early game team in the league.
Yes.
Are the worst laning team.
Well, they were the second best. They have dropped off sharply, actually. But yes, I have Liberty lower.
They went against the best early game team, and their stats probably took a bit of a punt from that INTZ game where they got rocked. So
INTZ rocked.
As well. But that was second round robin.
True. Remember? It's not applicable data. it's fake. It's not happening yet.
And I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater over one game, even if we do take it into account.
Yeah, exactly.
Could I suggest a D+?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying
because the elephant in the room here is that Raven has been by far and away just not good.
I think honestly his team fighting has been worse than his laning though.
Well, that's the definition of just not good.
Yes, true.
Because I didn't say Raven's laning there. I just said Raven.
D's and E's regardless. So I'm gonna put a D+, just because I think Lonely's quite good in lane.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Now, does it go down from here?
Yes. Yes.
In team fighting, yeah. I think they've had leads, right? They haven't even been behind always. They've actually had even or small leads to play with. But as soon as it comes round and the Ezreal Jace comp needs to poke, we're not poking. We're 1v5ing into a brush and dying and it's
I mean, if our lowest grade's an E, then I think it's an E.
It's gotta be. Surely. Does anyone have any faith?
I don't care. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try and argue that.
Give it an E. Yeah. Yikers.
Macro, D+, maybe C-, because they get leads occasionally.
Wait, what do we give Red for Macro? Because they are not performing better.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
A C+.
So then I'll
keep relativity in mind.
D for Kaboom here.
Any plussers or? Is their macro
No.
better than their
No.
laning? I don't think so.
I mean,
No, definitely
Probably
not.
not.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
X
Definitely
Factor.
not.
we might end up rating this team higher than one of their own players would, unfortunately.
Yeah.
True.
Yeesh.
You know.
X Factor is maybe C minus. I think if Lonely does actually, even Lonely's like X Factor hasn't
been
won them a game,
trying.
so
Yeah.
yeah, he's
already
been
up there right
he's
now.
been really trying, but he's not actually
Yeah.
had the X
Yeah.
Factor. He's had the close to X Factor, but it's not actually translated.
Yeah, and I'd argue the same Crossdale. I think actually Crossdale's been like their best performing player, actually, even above Lonely in team fighting. And even the Crossdale plus Lonely can't do it. So X Factor can't
Yeah.
do that.
So C minus, D plus,
D plus.
Yeah.
D plus,
D plus.
D plus.
D plus.
Overall, a
Uh,
report
yeesh.
card for the
D.
first round robin.
it's a D. Yeah.
I think average is out to about that with a C, an E in 3Ds.
I mean, it's.
I mean, come
yeah.
on, guys. They're 0-10, like 0-9 versus.
Yeah, we don't have to be nice.
They got
here.
an F, to be honest. Like, in their overall,
Just
but-
give him
Well,
an
yeah,
F.
E
It's
and
off
like
the bottom of our scale that we're using. We're gonna
Use an
give
E.
him an
Use
F.
an E. We'll go E.
We'll go.
Yeah.
I think
alright,
E,
it's
just
an F.
'cause-
He's the lowest, but
Yeah.
they did not pass the course.
Our best team
Yeah.
didn't get the best ranking, but our worst team definitely got the worst. That seems appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Next,
that's CBLOL.
Let's
Liberty,
let's.
or are we sending it?
We'll climb.
Okay.
We'll
Okay.
climb. Drafting for Liberty.
Good job.
As
Like,
everybody
really
looks-
standard, right? Like really average.
Yeah, they've just been boring.
Yeah,
they've
they've
been
been
really
fine.
boring.
Yeah.
A C, I think.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Roodood. Do you, when you say boring, is that a slight, or it's just like they aren't doing anything?
It's an
special?
apathetic
I
adjective.
guess it's
It
a
means
no
nothing.
feelings. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like that they're like playing a lot of Sedge, they're playing a lot of Ari, they're kind of the most interesting
Yeah.
thing I've seen them do is like they went to Kai'Sa quite early and then Chiari Renekton was fun, but he was also playing Cassante every other game, so you know.
They're the other team that whipped out an Ezreal mid.
Did they? Oh they did.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we gotta knock a little bit off that drafting then.
Give him a little minus on the.
Yep.
I'm happy to give him just a Waterline C, personally.
Yeah.
They are
It's like-
incredibly.
They're
fun.
drafting. They're picking champions.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, and I think
They
that
get
we can
pretty
get we'll get into it in overall is that
Yeah.
this team doesn't feel 1-9 in an
Yes.
instance. So
No, it really should.
They don't. You know.
let's go through laning. Let's go through laning
Okay,
and we
yeah.
can do this in X
So,
Factor. And...
I see-
Okay,
So
RMC,
there's
hit us.
no
Why
double
are they
down.
bad, RMC?
They are lane by lane. The only lane that's doing half decent is Chiari. The gold leads are coming from AC. AC is the top jungler in gold difference at 15, the
Mhm.
only jungler in top 5. That man hard carries the early game for Liberty. Avenger, Julia, and Was cannot find a lead if you gave them a map and compass right now. Like,
But you factored Croc into Loud's laning, so we have to give
We can
Yeah,
give them two
AC
goods and three
some-
bads, maybe. Like top side.
but
is
okay,
good,
the
mid
reason
side is
why I
bad.
factored Croc into the laning was because Croc impacts the lanes positively. He's getting the gold leads to the lanes, and then the
Mhm.
lanes get the gold with that.
Mm.
AC's gold sits on him because his lanes get the lead and lose it anyway. So it's like the only lane I'm willing to say is doing well for Liberty is Chiari right now.
Yeah. D. Flat.
It's like, are the other lanes like? You'll have the numbers on this RMC. Are the other lanes like really losing hard, or are they just like not getting leads? Like, are they going even? Are they just kind of mid? Like, because if they're just doing fine, then I don't want to like give them a D necessarily for doing fine against
Yeah.
like a lot of good players. It's more than I expected out of like Avenger and kind of Was. I was not like super excited about Was.
Okay, but then we're talking about expectations again at that point, right? So,
So,
like,
but- so,
Chiari's
like-
doing mid for gold difference
Sure.
at 15 right now. Avenger, if I recall correctly, is on the lower end. I'm just gonna.
Sure, because if they're getting like
check this.
smashed, then sure. But if they're like going even, I don't necessarily want to super hard punish them for that. Playing Ari every game, like playing basic champions, and just kind of
Okay,
doing
so-
okay.
Avenger is slightly above average. He's like
Hmm.
plus 85, which is
Okay.
actually like I think
Gigantic.
6th or 5th, somewhere there.
Yeah.
Juliera is the second worst laning AD carry right now.
Yeah.
And obviously that
Trying to
transfers.
put
You can take the word
Sure.
laning out of that. You're good.
Okay. God damn. Yeah, it's yeah.
So I have very strong opinions on our ADs at the minute.
So,
so-
like, for me, I would factor in like a jungler's performance into the laning stat, just because early jungling is important. And even if it's not like gold to the lanes, like I think AC's jungling has been really good, and I don't want to exclude him from this metric
Fine.
somehow.
Yeah, because
So I'd
otherwise you
argue
don't get
a
to talk
C
about the
for
jungler at all for the first two, for laning.
Yeah.
I
for
tend to
like
chuck
the
them
other
more
days.
into macro than laning for the junglers, but
Sure.
that's fair. That's fine. In
I'd
which case,
argue a
AC has
C.
just saved Liberty's laning report card. 'cause
Yeah,
I would-
again, he has saved them in
Sure.
the laning phase, even in this podcast.
I think
he
that's
has saved
fine.
the laning phase. Right. I'll give him this. Right. Team fighting.
Straight E, no. Like it can't be good. You cannot be going into the majority of games with leads
It
and
all
be 1-9.
Yeah, it all falls apart. at
Because it is
15
team
minutes.
fighting. It really is team fighting. It is just they had all the good stuff and then oopsies.
Yeah.
The
That-
fight
that's
falls
it.
apart.
We
Like,
can try
you-
and save them if we want,
You
but
lost
this
the
is
3-5
just
to Red.
I think
Gold
to
League,
the
like,
eye
what do
test,
you
they
do?
look more coordinated than Kaboom, but realistically, I think Kaboom's actually executing.
That's a low bar.
I think both
Yeah.
these teams are just executing very poorly.
We give them like
Yeah,
a
but-
plus to be higher than Kaboom, or
No, I actually think it's
Yeah.
worse than Kaboom's.
you think it's worse?
Or about the same. Yeah. They look different. Kaboom looks better to the eye
Scale them
test,
up.
but statistically, Liberty's throwing a bit harder in these team fights,
Yeah.
like we mentioned. So
Oof.
Macro is a little bit strange because we like AT's early macro. We don't like much of Liberty's late game, period.
we
Yeah,
don't have.
So again, we throw a D their way because we have to give some credence to
agree.
AC. Otherwise, it's all just atrocious. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like they've
D
made
minus,
They've
D.
made it far into these games a lot of the time.
They
Like,
have,
against
they really
Fury and
have.
Red. They made it like 90, as I said before, like 90, 95% into a really good game. And then just completely
I'd
gigabomb
rather
it.
give them a C plus for macro, and then a really low X factor because
yeah.
that's what ends up losing
That's
them games.
what I would rather do. I'd give them better macro and
Yeah.
a horrendous X factor for just like
Yeah.
tragically
I actually see it
throwing
the
it.
other way around.
Really?
Because I see their macro in mid to late as really bad. Like they make really bad decisions in terms of where they're rotating to and what fights they want to pick. And the reason why it's not worse is because their X factor kicks in and salvages some of those really bad calls.
just self-destruct.
I don't think anything is getting salvaged in their X Factor, is my theory. I've not seen anything that goes and leads me to have that X Factor is good. And I think
I think Avenger
they have
had
good early macro, bad late macro, and those are like, it depends how much you weight those. If you weight them 50-50, then it is just middle of the road, right?
We just need to find them a 1v9 jungler so
Yeah.
that AC can carry this entire team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think macro middle of the road's fine. Like,
Sure.
like
We
C.
have a
C. Their early's good. Their late's
We have a
bad.
C.
Yeah,
And then
Their X factor.
I would give them bad X factor.
yeah.
I don't know. I think Was and Avenger have shown good X factor at times, and Kiari's just really good late.
Kiari's had some, that's for sure.
I feel like we were talking about over the weekend that the problem was in Avenger have not been great, and it's
I think
the
Yes.
younger
Yeah.
players that have been the shining lights of this team.
That's
Granted,
why I
you
think
can't poke
at
holes in
moments-
Julia's game for
or
sure.
Avenger and Was. They're not as good as they should be consistently, and
Yeah.
at moments you see why they were picked up. The glimmers of brilliance,
Mm.
but they also throw really, really hard. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
again, I guess it depends on how you weigh the X factor. To me, I look at X factor as variance. Like the more variance, the higher X factor. But you guys are looking at it like negative, positive. So like you guys have to scale and stuff like the magnitude.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm looking at it. So
I would.
It is
E
difficult to
plus
quantify.
is as high as I would feel comfortable going.
Wow.
The plus is just in the bin. I think like
wow.
even if you lose like a fight at the enemy nexus, that doesn't mean the game should be over, right? Like Red didn't push to win off that fight. They then won again and again at like Elder and again, and the same with Furia, right? So it's not like they're losing one fight by bad expected. They're losing. They get to the gate and then they lose everything on top of everything on top of everything, and just
If
spiral
anything,
into the bin.
I'm looking more at their Furia game where they had a skilling composition which outscaled Furia. They won the early game, outscaled, and that's one point in the game I still remember and I saw you. Surely they can't lose the game,
Right?
here.
Yep.
Yep.
Every
Surely
corner,
not.
and they did. So
It seemed
yeah.
impossible. Okay, I think we can settle on E plus for them. So-
Overall, D minus because they are 1-9.
And yeah, they should
Yeah.
and they should be
Yeah.
viewed as notably better than Kaboom because I think they actually
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
yeah.
So they
I
have
mean,
to
the
be
fact
at
that
least
they're mostly
upgrade.
C's, right? It's just that they've got
Yeah.
very specific areas where they're falling.
Yeah.
Very specific, very important weaknesses.
So just actually just tank them in their record, yeah.
A very specific spot in the game called 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Let's move forward.
It's when the brains turn off.
Okay, this one's gonna be fun.
Yes.
Yeah. drafting.
Oh my god.
Is for VKS for the late.
They've also been actually fairly vanilla in their drafting, I think.
Well, I think when they've lost, they've been fairly vanilla. When they've won, so what's the game they went full comfort? Was it last week? Where they had like Gwen for Gigo, and then
I don't think Gwen's like out of the. I don't think Gwen's like a super crazy pick to go for.
Annie, Kaisa, and I can't remember what damage picked, but I just remember it was like almost like straight comfort across the board.
Was it Leona for damage? Because that would be my idea of a comfort pick for damage.
It was some sort of engage. Leona, Alistair, Rel, one of those. Yeah, but I remember like that game, like that is not really a meta draft. It's not really great, and it wasn't like the answer into what the other team was drafting.
Yeah.
But it is quintessential VKS, and I think if they draft that way, I actually like it more for Kate Stars.
Yeah.
I want to go B.
Do they get bonus points for being the team that has actually been able to most effectively use Kaisa?
No, and that's because that's not a drafting thing, that's an execution thing. I think they get bonus points for picking Kaisa. They don't get the points for, like, it goes into their drafting start. It doesn't go into anything else. Or, like, the execution of it goes into other teams' negatives and it goes into VKS's positives. Actually, there's a couple of teams that have started playing Kaisa with AD now, and they know how to play the champ, so that's cool as well.
Yep, we saw that yesterday, thankfully.
Yeah. Are we happy with B?
Do they get?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Do they get points for playing Ivern mid and it working and being good?
Oh, for being the first ones to play Ivern, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was actually the first Ivern game. I'd give them a plus for like a bit of spice that they can throw that no one else has tried, and it worked, and they clearly like knew what they were doing with it, which was cool.
Yeah. I'm good with that. Yeah.
Cool. Laning.
Aegis Jurisdiction.
We mentioned we kind of touched on this.
No, if previously AC had been pulling Liberty up, Grell needs to have just the biggest metronome in the world. I say this every single time I look at this guy. The game is decided because of Grell through the first 15 minutes. Like they will either win or lose the game in the first 15 minutes, and that is because of Grell. Like I don't know where it's averaging out to at the minute. I mean, obviously it's low. I don't know, but
I mean, technically, you could argue that it should be averaged at average because they're tight.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a. I don't have a counter argument for that. I'm happy to take that as a rule. Honestly.
Yeah.
I would say though we do have to give some points in talk because we talked about AC like transferring leads to his lane and then his leads doing nothing with it or falling apart afterwards. This is a team that actually, if Grell does translate leads to his lanes, does a pretty good job with it. Trigo has looked really good doing that when they've actually invested resources in bot lane. Of course, we can talk ad nauseum about how Gigo can take over the game, especially if you give him a comfort pick. I actually think he does the opposite
recently. He's been playing really badly mid and late game.
Oh.
In terms of macro choices, Gigo has been really bad.
And we can address that later.
Sure.
Yeah. But like for laning itself,
sure. Lane. Yeah.
You know what? I'd give them a B+. I do think actually their lanes are pretty good. Gigo's still winning out. Gigo has actually stepped up a lot in laning with the Kaisa pick specifically.
I've been very impressed with him lately.
Yeah, I've been very happy with that. So I'll be down for B+ for their laning. Yeah.
Team fights.
I think BKS team fight really well, honestly.
Yeah, actually. Surprisingly well.
Mm-hmm.
Like considering we expected
A- well. Like I think the problem comes from and I think that team fighting might even be an A because when they're losing games, they're still team fighting really well, just with gold disadvantages. They're playing like they have gold leads that they don't have, which maybe it should alter how you take the team fights, and there's a different discussion to be had there if we want it. But I think that generally speaking, they take team fights well, even if they shouldn't take them. Their ideology of being a 5 core and working with that, like doing the wrong thing together, I think is emblematic of VKS for me.
So the reason I hesitate to give them a full A is because the idea is there, but when I watch how they start a lot of their fights, it's not that smooth, fluid start that we're seeing from like Paid and Loud. Like, they just try to go, they all go in. A lot of times it's like with VKS, there you can see that moment of hesitation where the first person goes and everybody's like, crap, they went. We all go together. Like I love that mindset, but you can tell that sometimes it's not fully communicated before they start going in. So I'm happy in A-.
A minus?
Yeah, I'm the same.
All right. Macro.
Hey, Gigo and damage. You could just let that tier 2 tower bot die.
Just let it go, guys.
Right? You can just leave. I mean, hey, I would argue this is another spot of that like lack of communication that RMC highlights there about the team fights is that like your team is making a play essentially on the other side of the map, and you're 2v4. Like how is this not communicated that you just back away?
I watched 2 VKS games this weekend, and in both games, I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like, and this this isn't high level macro in my eyes. This is counting the amount of people on your screen.
Yeah.
I'm like verging toward D for their macro because it's
rough. Yeah.
It's bad. This team on paper has, and this is why I say they have the possibility to be any team in this league, but they do very silly things very frequently, and it annoys me.
Yeah.
Because on paper they are just a good team, and they have to get pulled down somewhere. We've given them a good report card for the most part.
It's going to be in the macro for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to argue for their macro.
Okay, good. Thank you.
We're with you, Roodood.
Wonderful. If I put a D for a Mac, okay, cool. X Factor.
Ooh, this one's kind of hard. Like I still feel like their X Factor is really high, but when I look at who they've beaten and who they've lost to,
it's just straight. We lose the better ones and beat worse ones. So
yeah.
Is this where we really quantify the metronome that is Grell? And how drastically he swings games.
I guess the whole team
like
is a metronome, man. I was saying this before.
Yeah,
because
like
Rude was clowning on me for this take of like when a team loses to a better team, they're bad or whatever. But like, I generally think they play and execute worse. In their like, they don't look like the same team and with the same skill and the same minds when they're losing.
Well,
sure.
I'd actually argue that they look exactly the same, and that's a problem. Because when you're losing, you can't be picking some of those fights. But Kate Stars don't seem to understand that. They just go like, "Hey, we take this fight," and it's like, "Well, you would have if you were even, but you're down 5K gold. This is not a fight you take," and they take it anyways. And likewise, when they're ahead, there'll be some fights where it's just like, just walk up and 5-man this, right? They'll just walk off the turret, and sometimes they're like, "No, let's set this up," and I'm like, "No, you really don't need to." So
that doesn't sound good for X Factor on it.
But Ego Gwen.
Wait. Boom. I had one
which is very banned.
Very banned, and
I think
also
C
lost the last
minus.
one.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know how to quantify this team
because it is a little bit. It is a little bit negative so far for the first round robin.
Sure.
Overall, I mean, the middle
like
of the road. I don't think a C is a.
They look like a B minus team, based on our grades at least.
It's just
like 2 B pluses and an A minus at the top.
If you'd asked us this like one game ago, we'd be like, "Oh, it's a B," and then you ask us the one game before that, it's a D. You know, it's just the VKS thing. Like, I don't know. This is, I could give him a C plus or a B minus, I think. But
C plus. It's not B. It's not B worthy. The amount of times I've looked at them and gone, it's not B worthy.
Real quick question on VKS: is there one individual player that swings games more than Grell?
No.
In CBLOL.
In CBLOL?
Well.
But we're talking variants here, right? We're not talking like swings in one way.
Yes, variants.
Then no. Yeah. There is not a player that wins and loses more games than Grell.
Yes,
individually.
Okay.
Robo hasn't won in that many games. Nobody on Kaboom has won. Nobody on Kaboom has won any games. So
Croc would be right there with Grell.
Croc is chasing.
Croc was getting there.
He's old Croc style right now. Right,
I mean, there could be a case made for Titan, but Titan swings games upwards more frequently than he does.
And that was the thing that I think
magnitude of
Rude said on the cast as well, that he doesn't actually lose them games though. Like, when's he actually lost them a game?
He's come. Last split he did actually specifically against Fury. I remember that.
Don't care. First round robin report card.
Yeah.
Los Grandes drafting. This team is depression station, honestly. I think their drafting is maybe their best part, honestly.
Yeah.
Which is really bad because it means that you play the game awfully.
I mean, they're a transfer student, right? Like they came in partway through the year.
Yeah, I mean, great.
You're trying to catch up on all the stuff that's been learned before, you know.
Let's C plus, maybe B.
I think
C plus.
I think their draft plays to their strengths as a team.
Yeah,
even when they were with different players, I think their drafts made sense for like who they were aiming for.
Apart from that Aurelia game, that was the only
Oh no,
that was a good draft.
That was a good draft. Yeah. It's just
that
Bull.
I've seen
Shit is
Bull Aurelia
pants.
before, man.
No, man,
I've
that
seen
was
Bull
Wiser
Aurelia
diff,
before.
That was Wiser diff.
I mean,
Yeah.
Wiser played well, but Bull also played absolutely terrible. I thought that game.
Okay.
I thought it was a combination of.
We'll go B. Let's go laning.
This is where it starts getting difficult because they also just have one good laner and then question marks else. Well, they have one good lane. I think that.
I actually don't think their laning's the problem either. Like Natuno Ranger actually are doing well in lane.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, so that's two good.
Hedon has looked okay.
Hedon's not losing lanes either. So and Enel is rather invisible in the early game, but
he has missed more schedules than he's landed, unfortunately, as well.
That's fine. Xmithy did that. Still one of the best.
I was gonna say we're channeling Xmithy.
Yeah, and he was still one of the best. So, I mean, in terms of laning, I actually don't think laning is the issue for Los Grandes, or at least not the individual component of it.
Could we give him a gentleman's B again for laning?
Yeah.
I'd
allow it.
Yeah, I'd say B or B minus if you want to penalize for Enel being invisible. But
all right, now we can shit on them.
This is where it gets really rough. Their team fighting is really bad. Like the shot calls for the team fight, like to go in, are not bad, but the actual fight itself devolves into absolute just.
I think Ranger has thrown away his life a couple of times as well.
Some of the shot calls from Ranger, I don't know if we'd call those team fights, but like some of the skirmishing and stuff that he's picking are absolutely boneheaded. Like just, especially in the last week or two.
I would agree.
Is it the situation where he's engaging that's boneheaded, or is it the fact that the team is not backing him up?
No, definitely there have been a couple situations that have been very bad, and I've been like, well, that was not the move, but good on you, I guess.
Maybe a bit of both, but definitely some of both. Like, there's been some...
Definitely some of the negative,
some boneheads and some, where's my teams?
And then there's also the rest of the execution, which is great. Natuno does well, and then everybody else is just
it is brutal to watch right now.
I am struggling to go higher than D. Thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like I said, I think they're really bad team fighting right now. Like they are probably like Kaboom, Liberty, almost levels of team fighting at this point.
Yeah, it's not good.
I also don't know what they do macro wise. I have not a clue.
They're doing standard things. So like they're at the objectives when they need to be at the objectives. Their setup is...
Are they at the right objectives?
They are, but the problem sometimes I feel like they shouldn't be contesting those objectives because they are just not good at anybody.
I would argue that they're at the wrong objective, RMC.
There's a case
you can't simultaneously be at the right objective and also not supposed to be there. I don't think that works.
Not supposed to fight there. Like you don't want to fight at all if you're Los Grandes right now.
Kind of VKS-esque, right? Like why are we making this choice when we have no business making this choice? You know, like
kind of, yeah.
And we gave them a D, did we not, for macro?
Well, I want to hesitate because I feel like Cade Stars makes macro choices where truly it's just wrong to be there under any circumstance. Whereas Los Grandes, if they were a better team, would be at the right place at the right time. But they are not the better team. Therefore, it becomes the wrong place. So
it's kind of hard to tell them to be like, you should make this choice on the basis that you are bad and should know that, and should not therefore play the game normally because you're so bad you can't play the game. So I'd maybe give him a waterline C, but like they're doing what teams should be doing. They're just bad at other things. It doesn't work.
Like the understanding of the game is sound.
Yeah. X Factor is tricky for this team as well, because like. Especially with the new lineup, because like I think Hedon is like particularly good, and Natuno obviously has like pop-off clutch factor.
I'm actually kind of low-key high on Hedon right now. Now, especially that they're giving him.
I feel good about Hedon.
Champions. Like the Orn pick was great. Like give him more team fight champions, and I think Los Grandes' team fight will look it. Yeah, it'll look a lot better once you do that. So
let's go crazy.
I think they've got pretty decent X factor. Enel is just like he'll be there. He's a solid role player. He'll do what you need him to do, but he doesn't have much of an X factor.
It definitely feels like NL is just kind of getting pulled around the map by Ranger.
I think so.
Yeah. It very much feels like Ranger's like, okay, go over there. Okay, go over there. Okay, come gank bot. Okay, go do that.
Yeah.
I would argue the Ranger Natuno X Factor exists as well. Ranger can find good fights. Natuno can pull off in a fight. I would be happy with a B+ for X Factor.
Ranger has looked exceptional at times on engaged supports, especially his Rel. His Rel has been really fucking good.
Yeah, and Ranger might be up there with Grell for variants.
It makes me so sad because I see those plays and then I see in my head like the epitome of like Los Grandes with Ranger at support, and I'm like, holy shit, Ranger and Natuno in a lane together, like this is what it could look like, and then I'm just like, but everything else isn't there.
Yep.
Overall marker.
Is it a C minus or
C minus D plus is where I'm at.
C plus or something like this? Because like I think this current iteration definitely has more potential, but like so much of it has spent so long being bad. So
without X Factor, I'd say C minus. With X Factor, I'd say C plus.
Handshake on a C.
Yeah, that feels like it.
Because it's a first round robin, and there were games they played with just players that are no longer on their team, so you have to factor that in as well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Alright,
next team. Are we halfway through now? I think we've done 5, right?
We're past.
More.
Okay.
We've done 1, 2, 3,
we've done 6,
4,
I think.
5, 6, yeah.
Okay, now.
Furia.
Drafting is going to be the biggest discussion here.
Yes. We're going to have to speed up as well, so... because we're
yes.
How much do we weigh comfort in the draft? Like, is that a good or a bad thing that they draft comfort sometimes?
I
don't know if I've ever seen... I've never seen them draft comfort and been like, this is a stupid pick for this point, where like you've drafted yourself into a hole by forcing yourself to take comfort. I don't know if I've ever felt that way when they're doing it.
Oh, I've felt that in every game that they drafted comfort. Every game they draft comfort, I'm like, well, this makes the game exceptionally more difficult now, but if you guys think you can hand check your way out of it, then go for it.
Like both games or I was like, I don't know if that's the right pick in this situation. Like that just felt like really out of pocket.
In emphasis of trying to speed this up, if I spitball my thoughts for all 5, and then anything egregious you want to contest me on, will do.
Yeah.
That seems...
Yeah,
for sure.
Seems like okay. So I will say drafting. I will give them a B, maybe B plus.
Yeah.
Laning, C plus at best. I think maybe a B.
I'd give them better than C for
Need
sure.
the reasoning behind C plus.
So Betao isn't actually the best laner that exists. I don't really rate Goot. Period. And then you've got good lane, bot lane. Tuts does fairly well, so I'm leveling out to C plus, potentially B minus if I had to scrap.
I feel like Tuts' value is not his laning prowess, right? It's like everything else. Like he's not bad at laning.
Yeah.
He's like the skirmish decision making, the engaging, and the team playing is
laning mid laner right now.
In what?
He's got the biggest.
I think you're putting too much stock on numbers here. Honestly.
Well,
great. I don't think he's not. He's just moving first, if that's all it is, or getting CS and not moving.
Laning, isn't it? Like part of laning for mid laners, especially, is getting prio at the appropriate times. And Tuts has prio consistently to save Goot.
And like I say, Tuts is a good mid laner. That's cool. I gave him good props, and he's pulling it up, but he's not offsetting Betao Goot question marks for me.
Because I think you were saying that Betao was better than people think. I think RMC as well, right? I think, do I remember you saying that?
Not for his laning. Not for his laning.
Okay, sure. Fair enough.
So I will settle on
settle
on B minus for a laning. Drafting was also B plus. Team fighting is where I think they're actually just really, really good. Which is how they're out diffing everybody with the poorer drafts that we've seen them settle into. So I would go A for team fighting. I would settle their macro in somewhere in the middle. I don't think their macro is exceptional. I don't think it's egregious. And their X factor is very high, generally speaking, as well. I think their X factor and team fighting have won them way too many games, but their macro is also atrocious. I watched that game versus Liberty on round 9, and I said, you can't convince me that these two teams are now actually good at the game.
Yeah,
maybe that was a bit harsh, but Furia's macro is not.
Roodood is dumping his Furious stock big time.
If
he ever had any.
I mean, Roodood is criticizing, I think, appropriately. He's not dumping his stock.
Yeah.
Team, so
is the macro reaching D level or is it low C?
No. It's not that egregious. Like C minus.
It's not
C minus
BKS is.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
And then X Factor.
I would almost want to give team fighting A minus and macro C, because I feel like some of the team fighting is actually just good picks, which I feel lends itself more to macro and setup than actual team fighting.
sure. A minus and C.
So in my head, the standard for A right now
Yeah.
for fighting is like Pain and ITZ.
Yeah, because I think that I personally think Batal's not as good at team fighting, especially after week 1. I think he's not been as good. I think Goot as well has been super variable as of late. Like they both had super good weeks 1 and 2, and they've both dropped off a little bit for me, kind of across the board. So I would argue for a minus on the team fighting. We can give him a C here, and then yeah, like an A for X Factor, right? Like, are you like?
I think you do
crack
have
watch clips, like,
and
surely.
that's Tuts, and that's Tuts moments as well.
Yeah.
And Betal.
I'd A plus.
And Betal.
Betal actually both have higher ceilings.
Oh yeah, because they give them the carries in the Rumble and stuff. I give them are we A plusing them here? We give them like a fat X Factor, just an A.
Yeah,
because sometimes Betal and Goot's X Factor is negative at times.
Yeah, Goot is variable sometimes. All
right. Overall, they are probably not going to make playoffs in my eyes. I don't know. It's difficult.
Rough giving them a B if they're not going to make playoffs, right? It feels kind of.
Mm-hmm. I think that speaks to the stack of CBLOL, honestly.
But what we've seen through the first round robin, this team feels like a B to B plus team.
Yeah,
I would push. I would stick at B. I wouldn't go B plus at all.
Recently, they have dropped. I agree.
Yeah.
But if you look at the entirety of it,
yeah, because it's the first round looked really good to start with.
Yeah.
All right.
I think somebody else should do what I just did, but for the next team, and then we can.
Yeah, sure.
Fluxu.
Isn't fair
tips on Pain, so you guys can take this.
Yeah, so you take Fluxu because this is my bias team. So so you can take this.
Oh, you sure, Trajan? You don't want to? You don't want to talk about house?
You don't want me to just put like
RMC's taking Pain. RMC's taking Pain. So you're supposed to take Fluxu here.
Does that mean I have
make a case for your team, man?
Does this mean I have license to give them a D because they don't draft House Azir
every single game? I'm a board.
Yeah.
I love that you asked. I think their drafting is fine. Like, and I think most teams in the league's drafting is fine. Like, I don't think there's any team that is terrible or any team that is exceptional. Not a lot of teams are like breaking the meta. So like, I'm at a C plus. I think they're okay. Maybe a B minus on drafting. Laning.
Plus, that draft versus INTZ was too illegal for a B. I think just that whole game was just the most insane self-countering maneuver I've ever seen.
For sure. For sure.
That was a little bit rough. I forgot about that.
Laning has been good. I'm probably. I don't know that I want to give him an A. I feel like I'll go A minus. On laning for Fluxu, I think it's been solid. I almost want to skip to macro because I just want to be like.
I would agree with A minus because I think like Tay is fulfilling his role. He's going down in weak side lanes, and House is giga stomping everybody, and Brunsey and Jojo have been giga stomping like in the 2v2s, like in the skirmishes and the fights, and the Desamus' early jungling has been really sick as well. He's actually been like really good, like out jungling in my opinion, like Desamus and getting stuck in a lot in the right places. So.
If I come back to 2022 with Ty, I think Ty is having problems in the top lane because he's not like he's losing gracefully as a weak side top laner, but we've seen teams kind of exploit that by picking scaling picks against Ty, knowing that it literally doesn't matter. He's not punishing you in lane whatsoever, and so like because of that, like I hesitate to give Fluxu an A minus, like because Ty is an exploitable weak point in laning right now.
It is though, like, is that concerning when you consider the meta of the top lane right now?
Yes, because we have
really,
like ZZK took advantage of that, right? You've got Weiser who can do the same. FNB would do it. Gigo would do it. That's like half the league.
Okay,
gonna punish him for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's convincing.
Team fighting and macros where things start to get weird. For me, because too often I just don't know what this team is doing post 20 minutes. Everything kind of falls apart for me, and I've made the point multiple times, like on the broadcast. I'm like, why? I know he's good, but how often do we really need to make Brunsey 1v9 for this squad? Like, why does everybody on the team turn their brains off so often? So like their team fighting is like, I guess, probably just above average. For me, I'm going to like C plus. In the macro play, I'm not a fan of. I'm like C minus D plus on macro play because this team does not make sense to me too often. You guys are talking about like, maybe picking the right fights and not executing on them. I feel like a lot of times this team will pick the wrong fights, and or they will just not execute in team fights that they should be.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of their team fighting. I agree that much. I think a lot of their team fighting is individual skill, like House making an insane play or Brunsey making an insane play to keep off. And I think the biggest victim of this is Ty, who gets weak-sided to play team fight champions, and the team doesn't.
And then his team doesn't have any team fight in him. Yeah.
So in that respect, I agree with you. Macro-wise, though, I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember much of Fluxu's like macro for better or for worse. Like to me, it felt like an average team for macro, but. Yeah, maybe
so is it just C minus C plus for team fighting then macro, and then a decent X factor rating? I think.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at right now.
I think that's fair.
The macro game, like, well, yeah, when they were playing a lot of just like front to back team fighting teams, they felt like a team that would show up to an objective and fight at it, and they were like kind of like Los Grandes-esque, and they're like, we're gonna be where we're supposed to be for like a Dragon or a Baron, but apart from that, we're not doing too much. And they tried like the LeBlanc split push thing, and they clearly like had some of that. But they didn't. They literally flubbed it, and they kind of lost the game by flubbing that strategy by like not.
I would say it was against one of the worst teams they could have done that into, though.
Yeah, they got punished super hard by that. Was the pain game, right? So they had the So like it was a tough opponent, and they had no room for error there. But ultimately, they almost kind of had it there, but they just didn't. They weren't good enough to pull it off at the end of the day. Because they've beaten Red, right? And like they couldn't beat Pain because their macro wasn't quite where it needed to be with that. So
C minus, C plus, X factor, probably an A.
Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I would agree with that.
How's Brunsey is too much of an X factor. I think Tay's downside isn't that bad X factor wise.
Yeah, and he's not losing the games by any means. He's really steady
for sure. And
he can actually play carries. I'm still waiting for the day he does that again.
Yeah, which is they let him. Yeah, like Jojo's been actually surprisingly good for me as well. Like Desamus, even in team fights, like he was a big part of them fighting back into that NTZ game. So like I don't know. I think it was pretty. Yeah, I think
overall is a B minus.
We can't give them any more than a, because
I think it's B minus.
I'd be willing to give a B just straight on their X factor.
I mean, like I said, I'm biased. I'd give him a B. I'd give him more than
than
some others.
We have 3 Bs. That's good.
All right.
Yeah,
so,
that's fair. It reflects our ties that we keep having.
This next one is INTZ. Which...
So RMC, you have to take this one.
Yeah.
Okay, INTZ. Yeah, drafting. I think they're like pretty normal. Nothing too.
I like the
too whack. I
think it's cool.
A lot.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's solid. I was gonna give them like a B minus for it because I do think they're playing to their strengths, especially around TCK. The Ziggs. Okay, I'm on. You know what? I did like the Ziggs into Phyllis. I do think that's a good answer. So B minus for their drafting. I think. What?
I think it's way above. Way above.
An A or an A minus.
Yeah.
Tell me on it.
Well, you said all the good things and then you give me any bad things, and then said B minus.
So I think ZZK they draft for ZZK strengths really, really well, and even that has scaling and laning, right? So they have pockets in top lane, and they draft him for success, and it works out when they play around it. They're giving Yampi like all the best enabling junglers to do exactly what he needs to do every single game, and they're prioing him where they need to. Ninja Kiwi has like enough of a pool they can pull out a Ziggs and literally make it work, so they don't even have to like lock themselves into normal bot lane meta to go up with the other 1200 good ADCs, so they actually have pockets there and can pilot them. Like,
okay. I will say to add credence to first round robin, because Ziggs was second round robin technically. They also played a Civic game. Right?
Sure.
It's just the same thing. It's just an AD champ that does the same thing.
That is actually true. Yeah.
Also played.
So I think that they respond really well to what their opponents are drafting, while also prioritizing their own members in the right way. And like, I can't think of a time where they've like drafted themselves into a hole or like felt like the draft was ever the problem in their games. And they have interesting picks that can give them extra value that other teams aren't using. So I would give them an A.
Do you remember a Volibear game in CBLOL this split?
Dude, that was a good pick. You said it was a good pick. It was a good pick for Yampi.
No, I said Volibear can operate, but you need to play it properly. You need to get early ganks off. Yampi got one gank on,
but it doesn't matter. It's
not a drafting problem.
It is a drafting problem. You picked Volibear.
Then you didn't execute on
it. That is a laning and play problem in macro.
I think the Volibear. What is the advantage of Volibear in that draft? Like there wasn't a reason to pick it when meta was, Wukong, Sejuani.
So
Valkyrie.
you have so that's fine. So you've got one example out of 9 games that was like fairly. That was like, and we can argue the like nature of the Volibear could have done better itself, but the draft itself, I think, still warrants an A- at the very least, because if it's one pick out of 50 or one pick out of 45, like
I mean, your good points are like 3 out of 9 as well. So it's like, okay, that's why I said like a B plus, right? Because like,
I mean, I disagree that it's 3 points. Like you picked one individual pick, and Trajan is talking about the entirety of how they draft for ZZK, how they set Yampi for success, and you said Volibear.
With ZZK's draft as well, I do think they're picking well towards ZZK, but I also don't think they're picking necessarily counter matchups for ZZK. And that to me is more about ZZK's laning and his personal ability to make those picks pop off. And that's why I don't give that much credence to it, because it's the Ninja Kiwi points are great. Like 100% I agree with Ninja Kiwi's picks and the way they're using them. That one I think is a very strong point, which is why I didn't want to just give them average, and that's why I boost them above average. But the ZZK one feels more like a ZZK difference, and what they're doing good is giving him carries, not necessarily the setups or the matchups they're giving to ZZK with those carries. So that to me goes more towards laning or X Factor rather than drafting.
Are you going to be very perturbed if we go A-?
No, that's fine.
Maybe handshake B plus.
No, we can't.
RMC. No,
I mean, you guys have good reasons for the drafting being A-. I'm fine with that. Sure. And like I said, the problem to me right now is I don't feel particularly strongly about drafting in CBLOL. Like I said, not people many before.
And that's why I think that when there's actually decent drafting, we need to credit it more appropriately.
That's fair. I'm okay with that. Let's speed up again. Laning-wise,
we went skip one through this, right?
Yeah, laning-wise, I think INTZ A for laning. Like they are the best laning team right now. No one's beating them in lane, so that's great. Their team fighting is mixed for me. I have kind of similar problem that I had with Fluxu, where I don't think the team fighting is the cleanest from them, but every player knows their role and what they need to do, and they have a lot of leads from laning. So I'm kind of like B plus A- for team fighting.
B plus, I'm happy.
Yeah. Macro-wise, they're clean. Like they know what they need to do, where they need to do it, and because of some of their interesting picks, it gives them, I think, a little bit of an edge in macro and being able to shove out faster on Sivir, on Ziggs, play around that. So macro, again, B plus A- for me. I think INTZ are very solid on that front, and in the early game especially.
Let's B plus it, and then we can give them the juice in macro in X Factor. Yeah. I think they're going to get juiced.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and I think their X Factor is huge.
Yeah, like actually just A plus.
Yeah. Like ZZK is starting to pop off. We've seen glimmers from Yampi already, or not glimmers. Yampi has been impressing. Ninja Kiwi was cracked. Well. Nia has been my biggest surprise this split, actually. I was so down on Nia last split.
Same.
He was getting caught out in the weirdest position.
I think overall is A-.
I think that's kind of what the average is looking like here.
Yeah.
That's it's kind of a harsh A- as well.
Because the thing is that when they go against better teams than them, this is still that they do lose games, and it might come down to just comes down to the B pluses that they have not being A's. But
well, I think it's also teams that are capping at the top right now. They have one area they're really, really, really good at, and they know how to play around it, right? Whereas INTZ right now feels a bit more like a jack of all trades. They're really good across the board, but we're waiting for that extra special thing that they excel at that no team can beat them at.
Yeah. For sure.
Okay.
All right.
Final team.
Pine. Gaming. Okay.
This is Trajan's bag.
Yeah.
Take away.
Drafting for Pain. I'm trying to think if I have literally any issues with Pain drafting. Like that's how I've been thinking about it. Like, are there any problems with it? Is there anything interesting about it?
They're one of the few teams who've learned to ban Zaya. When you're gonna pick Kai'Sa, why? Smart. They finally burned it. Jesus. It took them an entire split to learn. But they've learned it.
Absolute gigabrains down there. So I would give them like a B for drafting. Sure, I think it's been fine. It's been solid.
That's kinder than me. I was going to give them a B-.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. So laning, I think. So the laning's hasn't felt exceptional. I don't know if it actually is. But
other than Wiser's.
It's quite slow. Yeah, Wiser's is godlike, right? We can say this. Wiser's is godlike.
Incredible.
Kato, I think, has been pretty soft this split compared to especially the end of last split. He was on fire, and now I don't see him
competing with like the Tuts and the Tinones and the Hows as
It's
much
the
as he was.
drafting, man, because they keep giving
He's
him Ari.
he's on Ari duty.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
well, so is Tinones, to be fair. Look how that turns out. So,
No, Tino's is playing a lot of other different things.
yeah, but the Ari has been like one of his most impactful champions as well when he gets it. I think like there
don't think
are
that's the
players
case with
doing
him.
more with Ari than Dinkato is doing with Ari, and I'd be the first to call Ari the most boring champ in the game. But like I think Dinkato has been quite soft, and then the bot lane has been solid pro Delta. I remember more pro Delta's like out of lane experiences that really make me happy with that. He's fine in lane, and then B-Boy is he's scaling up, buddy. You know he's crushing folks once he got the team fight. So I would give their laning like, how much does Wiser drag it up? Maybe like a B+, because I don't think Karaoke's been like super cerebral either particularly. I think they're like fine, and then and Wiser is godlike, so I give them like a B+.
Yeah.
B+. Yeah.
I'd have given it an A and then minus down to an A- because of Karaoke.
And I think the Karaoke point is good because he can go Grell mode if he starts to become too noticeable in the early phases of the game. Like he can become that dude that pulls your team down, but he's been solid, and I like the Ivern pick for him.
Yeah, the worst I think he's been is invisible at times, but not like good. So team fighting, very good. Really very good. Really quite good. Yeah, I'm giving them an A for this just because like we could argue to also give them an A+ just say they're second best, but they're still A+. I don't know if anyone thinks they should be lower than.
Yeah, I do think they should be A+. Like
I'll allow
good
that.
team.
Yeah.
I think Loud's
They went
better,
blow for blow with Loud yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. Macro wise, for Pain Gaming, they just
I
like
think
completely.
they are
They school everyone who's like not.
they
on
are
this
super
level,
solid.
right?
Yeah.
This is like maybe the only A macro team that we have. Because they're just
I mean,
like,
A or A+, I'm happy because they get a lead and they win the game. It's not even.
yeah.
Nobody
especially
closes games as good as Pain does, and it's not even close.
Yeah. And then X Factor for Pain. The Pain fan in the house is not happy with this one.
I've said it before. I'll say it. Highest skill floor, lowest skill ceiling, man. Like Pain.
Yeah, you know what you're gonna get.
It's like this is like a Waterline CX Factor. Like this is the team, and the rest of it is all super sick, but that's the team. And if it's not better than what the other is, then it's not gonna win. Like
there's no X factor one way or the other.
Yeah. Maybe I might even give them a C+, again, just for Wiser this split, because he has been literally 1v2ing under his own tower, and like, for me, this has been
for years.
Yeah,
the way he absorbs pressure in his lane is disgusting.
Yeah.
For me, it feels
he's
like
still been doing that.
This is eye test, this is gut check for me. It feels like he's even better than before, because I put him as my best top laner last split, and like I think he is.
Yeah.
But for me, he's even more so. So I would argue for a little C+, just for Wiser, a little Wiser plus on that.
Okay.
And with an overall of this is like an A team, or an A minus, because there's some B's.
A minus, yeah.
But this needs to be this is a team that really should be up there and is. So. Let's do a quick just like scout through the rest of them to refresh before we move on, because we're obviously going along again. But so Red was an A minus, Loud A minus,
Triple plus.
Pain A minus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then INTZ A minus.
INTZ.
Top 4.
Okay.
Good job, consistency.
Makes sense.
Good job, everybody. Fluxu was a B. EKS a C plus. Fury was a B. Los Grandes a C. Liberty a D minus, and Kaboom on the E train.
You know, it's suspiciously similar to the standings. Who would have thought?
But
Well done, us. Okay, so that'll round out our little segment. We're gonna skip on to just week 6 and look toward that next set of games that we're going to be seeing.
Okay.
So if there are any games that anyone wants to call, I know what our match of the week is, so I can leave that, and I'll leave that as a little secret answer if people want to find it. And yeah, I think the podcast can see screen 2, or can see the games, right?
Yeah.
We just have to find them ourselves, correct?
That's fine. I'll just bring it back. So
Okay.
There we go. I'll assist everybody.
Perfect. I mean, there's one
Open
match
floor.
So
Yeah, RMC, what is
Besides
it?
the obvious one. Yeah.
it's got to be battle up top, right? We've got 4 teams we think are up there. 2 of them have already played Loud Pain. So next one we've got on the docket is Red Loud. On
Red
Sunday.
Loud, ding ding ding. That is match of the week for
Yeah.
for next weekend. Yeah, I mean it is 2 of the teams that we've just had as A minus. sitting in the top 4. We're very happy with both these teams, and you need to just watch to find out if they're going to be good enough with one another. Are there any other ones that are worth pointing out and drawing our attentions to as potential?
Yeah.
I think Liberty Kaboom is one that you want to see because you should want to see.
If you like watching car crashes, then Liberty Kaboom is the one for you. For me it's Red INTZ.
Yeah.
To end Saturday, if you go back to the first time they played back in the day 2 of week 1, this was the Volibear game, and Red beat the doors off of INTZ in this game, and I think this is going to be a much closer game this time around, especially because we've seen that Red is very susceptible at times. You can make it a close game. It doesn't mean you'll be able to keep Red from finding that one play that is enough for them to close out the game and win, and it's a reason why they're 9-1 through 5 weeks. But I think this is going to look very different than the first time that these teams played, and I'm really excited because I think this is going to be a really good match.
Yeah, another top 4.
This is like a yardstick game for me for INTZ, where I'm always like they're performing super well, but as we put it still feels like we don't have the same power in nameplates on this roster, and against Red, the ultimate nameplate power roster. And they got so clapped in week 1 that we were all just like, NT's just going to be bad again, right? We thought they were going to be bad.
They haven't been the best teams.
Yeah, and now the Red matchup is, as Yeso put, it's the most exploitable matchup, right? The teams have been, or in theory, up until Red just wins anyway, but
top 3.
It feels like the most exploitable matchup, and if you're such a well-rounded team like we know they are, you need to be able to take pain further than you did last time, at the very least, right?
Perfect. I think that honestly might just do it, because there are 2 top-heavy teams and a lot of mid-table scraps going up against one another. Any closing thoughts from anyone? RMC sounds.
I just want to add one more match, because rather than Liberty Kaboom, if you really want to watch a bottom-table desperate match where teams are putting everything on the line, Liberty Los Grandes might actually be more of it in Saturday, because I think those 2 teams are actually closer, and both of them are desperate to start picking up wins. So that one, I'm personally interested in to see, how desperate can desperate, how do these teams look when they're really desperate and up against the wall?
I don't hate lost games as much as I used to as well. With Hidan and Natuna and Ranger getting a bit more airtime with engaged supports, I don't not look forward to them as much. They're actually okay, this could be a fun game, and against Liberty as well, where the games are just nuts all the time, that could be a good one for sure.
Alrighty. So with that, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Gringos Liberados. Thank you if you've stuck all the way through this. It has been a mighty long haul into the night for us, but nevertheless, we're happy to bring you this content. Follow us on Twitter at CBLOL_English. Follow the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/CBLOL_English, and follow all of us on our respective social medias as well. Thank you very much for tuning into episode 6. We will see you next weekend, same time, same place on the CBLOL English Twitch. Goodbye.